97. Sai Wenji's return to Han. After his defeat at the Battle of Red Cliffs, Cao Cao spent several years reorganizing his forces, restoring his military strength, and ultimately proclaiming himself the Duke of Wei. In 216 AD, he was further elevated to the rank of King of Wei, with his capital at Yi. His influence in the north was so great that even the Chanyu of the southern Xiongnu, Hu Chukan, personally traveled to Yi to offer his congratulations. Cao Cao treated Hu Chukan as an esteemed guest and kept him in Yi, appointing the right wise king of the Xiongnu to oversee their nation in his stead. With relations between the Han and the southern Xiongnu now improved, Cao Cao recalled that his late friend, Sai Yong, had a daughter who was still living among the Xiongnu. He decided to bring her back. Cai Yong was a distinguished scholar of the late Eastern Han period. In his early years, he offended the eunuchs at court and was exiled to Shuofang, in present-day Hangjin Bana, Inner Mongolia. When Dong Zhuo came to power, Cai Yong was allowed to return to Luoyang. At that time, Dong Zhuo was eager to win over talented individuals and, upon hearing of Cai Yong's reputation, appointed him to a government position, promoting him 3 ranks within just 3 days. Compared to the oppression he faced under Emperor Ling of Han, Cai Yong found life under Dong Zhuo more favorable. However, when Dong Zhuo was later assassinated, Cai Yong expressed regret for his benefactor's death, which angered Minister Wang Yun. Wang Yun deemed him a loyalist to Dong Zhuo's faction and had him arrested. Despite numerous officials pleading for clemency, Wang Yun refused to spare him, and Cai Yong ultimately died in prison. Cai Yong's daughter, originally named Cai Yang but better known as Cai Wenji, was as learned and talented as her father. After his death, chaos engulfed the Guangzhou region as Li Ju and Guosai waged war, forcing the local people into exile. Cai Wenji, too, wandered as a refugee. At that time, Xiongnu raiders took advantage of the disorder to plunder the region. One day, Cai Wenji was captured by Xiongnu warriors. Seeing her youth and beauty, they presented her to the left-wise king of the Xiongnu, who took her as his wife. She lived among the Xiongnu for 12 years. Though she adapted to their way of life, she never stopped longing for her homeland. Now remembering Cai Wenji, Cao Cao sent an envoy bearing gifts to the Xiongnu to negotiate her return. The left-wise king was reluctant to let her go, but he dared not defy Cao Cao's will. He had no choice but to allow her to return to Han. Cai Wenji was overjoyed at the prospect of returning to her homeland but heartbroken at the thought of leaving behind the children she had borne in the Xiongnu lands. Torn by conflicting emotions, she composed the famous poem 18 Songs of a Nomad Flute, Hu Jia Shiba Pies. Upon arriving in Yi, Cai Wenji found herself alone, without family or kin. Seeing her plight, Cao Cao arranged for her to marry Dong Sai, a military officer in charge of agricultural colonies. However, not long after, Dong Sai committed a crime and was arrested. He was sentenced to death, and his execution was imminent. Desperate to save her husband, Cai Wenji rushed to the palace of the King of Wei to plead for mercy. At that time, Cao Cao was hosting a banquet attended by numerous high-ranking officials, scholars, and nobles. The palace attendants informed him of her arrival and request. Recognizing that many of the dignitaries present had once been acquaintances of her father, Sai Yong, Cao Cao turned to them and said, "Sai Yong's daughter has suffered many years of hardship. Now that she has returned, shall we invite her in to meet everyone?" The attendees readily agreed. Cai Wenji was brought into the hall. With her hair disheveled and barefoot, she entered and immediately knelt before Cao Cao, tearfully begging for her husband's life. Her clear voice and heart-wrenching words deeply moved the audience. Many of those present had been friends of her father, and upon seeing her distress, they were reminded of the late Cai Yong. Some were so affected that they were on the verge of tears. After hearing her plea, Cao Cao remarked, "Your case is indeed worthy of sympathy, but the official documents for his execution have already been issued. What can be done now?" Cai Wenji pleaded, "Your stables hold thousands of fine horses, and your guards are as numerous as a forest. If you would only send one warrior with a swift steed, he could retrieve the decree in time to save my husband." Moved by her words, Cao Cao personally signed a pardon and dispatched a rider to intercept the execution order. Dong Sai was granted clemency. It was the depth of winter at that time, and seeing that Cai Wenji was inadequately dressed for the cold, Cao Cao gifted her a headscarf, shoes, and warm socks, instructing her to put them on. Cao Cao then asked her, "I have heard that your family once possessed an extensive collection of books and manuscripts. Are they still preserved?" Sai Wenji sighed sorrowfully. "Before my father passed, he left me over 4,000 volumes of books. However, the chaos of war has scattered them all, and not a single one remains. But I still remember over 400 pieces by heart." Impressed, Cao Cao said, "I will send 10 scribes to your home. They will record all the works you can recite. How does that sound?" Cai Wenji humbly declined. "There is no need. If the king of Wei would be kind enough to grant me paper and ink, I will write them down myself." True to her word, Cai Wenji meticulously transcribed the hundreds of works she had memorized and presented them to Cao Cao. Upon reviewing them, he was deeply satisfied. By retrieving Cai Wenji, Cao Cao not only reunited her with her homeland but also played a crucial role in preserving classical literature. Her return to Han has since been celebrated as a historic and literary triumph, known as Wenji's return to Han, Wenji Gui Han. 98. Guan Yu's Great Flooding of the Seven Armies. After Liu Bei took control of Izhou, Sun Quan of Eastern Wu sent envoys demanding the return of Jingzhou. However, Liu Bei refused, leading to tensions between the two sides. Just as conflict seemed imminent, news arrived that Cao Cao was preparing an invasion of Hanzhong, threatening Izhou as well. Recognizing their common enemy, Liu Bei and Sun Quan reached an agreement. They divided Jingzhou along the Xiong River. Lands west of the river would belong to Liu Bei, while those to the east would go to Eastern Wu. With the Jingzhou dispute temporarily settled, Liu Bei focused on his campaign against Cao Cao. He stationed Zhuge Liang in Chengdu to oversee Izhou while personally leading an army to attack Hanzhong, with Fa Zhang serving as his chief strategist. Upon learning of Liu Bei's movements, Cao Cao swiftly organized his forces and personally traveled to Chang'an to oversee the defense of Hanzhong. The two sides were locked in a prolonged stalemate for a year. In the second year of the conflict, at the Battle of Yangping Pass, Liu Bei's forces achieved a decisive victory, killing Cao Cao's general Xiahou Yuan. With his position untenable, Cao Cao withdrew his troops from Hanzhong to Chang'an. With this victory, Liu Bei's control over Izhou was firmly established. In 219 AD, supported by his officials and generals, he declared himself the king of Hanzhong. Zhuge Liang had long devised a two-pronged strategy to conquer Cao Cao's territory. With victory secured in the west at Hanzhong, they were now to advance from the east via Jingzhou, striking directly at the Central Plains. The general in charge of Jingzhou was none other than Guan Yu. Though both brave and strategic, Guan Yu was also known for his arrogance. When Liu Bei sent an envoy bearing the official seal, appointing him as front general, Guan Yu was initially displeased, considering the title beneath him. Only after others explained Liu Bei's deep trust and regard for him did he accept the appointment with satisfaction. Now, with orders to attack, Guan Yu left 2 officers to defend Jiangling and Gong'an while he personally led a large army to besiege Fancheng. The city's commander, Cao Ren, quickly sent an urgent request for reinforcements. In response, Cao Cao dispatched 2 seasoned generals, Yu Jin and Pang De, leading 7 separate armies to reinforce Fancheng. To strengthen their position, Cao Ren ordered Yu Jin and his forces to set up camp on the open plains north of the city, ensuring mutual support between the reinforcements and the defenders inside. This arrangement made it difficult for Guan Yu to breach the city. As the two sides remained deadlocked, an unexpected torrential rainstorm flooded the area around Fancheng. The Han River swelled rapidly, submerging the plains under more than 10 feet of water. Yu Jin's encampments, situated in the lowlands, were completely inundated. Surrounded by floodwaters, Yu Jin and his troops had no choice but to seek refuge on small patches of high ground. Guan Yu had anticipated Yu Jin's vulnerability in the open plains. As soon as the floodwaters rose, he deployed a fleet of large and small boats, leading his navy in an attack against the stranded Wei forces. His first target was Yu Jin himself. Trapped on a small island of dry land, Yu Jin had nowhere to retreat. With no options left, he surrendered to Guan Yu. Meanwhile, Pang De and his troops had taken refuge on a river embankment. Guan Yu's forces encircled them, while archers aboard the ships rained down arrows on the defenders. One of Pang De's officers, frightened by the overwhelming force, urged him to surrender. Enraged at such cowardice, Pang De drew his sword and executed the officer on the spot. Seeing their commander's unwavering resolve, his troops fought with renewed determination. Despite the dire situation, Pang De remained calm, firing arrows with deadly accuracy. Many of Guan Yu's soldiers were struck down. The battle raged from morning until late afternoon. Once Pang De ran out of arrows, he ordered his men to draw their short swords and prepare for close combat. He turned to his soldiers and declared, "A true general does not flee from death. A righteous warrior would rather die with honor than live in disgrace. Today is my day to die." As the floodwaters continued to rise, the embankment grew smaller and smaller. Guan Yu's navy pressed their attack, forcing more of Pang De's soldiers to surrender. In the ensuing chaos, Pang De and 3 of his men managed to seize a small boat and attempted to escape toward Fancheng. However, a powerful wave capsized the vessel, throwing them into the water. Before he could recover, Guan Yu's forces captured him. Back at his camp, Guan Yu attempted to persuade Pang De to surrender. However, Pang De defiantly rebuked him, saying, "Wei's armies number 1,000,000, and our kings might shake the world. Your so-called ruler, Liu Bei, is nothing but an ordinary man. How could he ever compare to our lord? I would rather die as a loyal subject of Wei than live under you." Infuriated, Guan Yu ordered Pang De's execution. With both Yu Jin and Pang De defeated, Guan Yu advanced on Fancheng. The city was now completely surrounded by floodwaters, and sections of the city walls had collapsed due to the torrents. Inside, Cao Ren's soldiers were filled with fear. Some urged him to abandon the city while there was still a chance to escape by boat. Cao Ren himself began to waver, but his advisor Man Chong intervened. "The flood will not last much longer," he reasoned. "We have received reports that Guan Yu has already sent forces north along another route, but he has not yet committed his main army. This suggests he fears we might cut off his retreat. If we flee now, we will lose not only Fancheng but all of the lands south of the Yellow River. I urge you to hold firm a little longer." Cao Ren saw the wisdom in Man Chong's words and resolved to defend the city. Meanwhile, unrest was spreading throughout the region. In Luhun, modern-day northeastern Song County, Henan, a local leader named Sun Lang led a rebellion, killing government officials and declaring allegiance to Guan Yu. Similar uprisings occurred in many areas south of Xuchang, as Guan Yu's fame spread throughout the Central Plains. At this time, Cao Cao was in Luoyang. Receiving urgent reports from all directions, he became uneasy. In a meeting with his officials, he even considered temporarily abandoning Xuchang to escape Guan Yu's momentum. However, his strategist Sima Yi advised otherwise. "My lord need not worry," he said. "Despite their alliance, Liu Bei and Sun Quan deeply distrust one another. Now that Guan Yu has gained so much glory, Sun Quan will surely resent him. Why not send envoys to negotiate with Sun Quan? Offer to grant him dominion over Jiangdong and propose a joint attack against Guan Yu. With this plan, the siege of Fancheng will resolve itself." Cao Cao saw the merit in Sima Yi's plan and immediately dispatched envoys to Sun Quan.